Maggie Baugh joining us. So you're performing tonight in Folsom.
I am.
But this is your first solo tour, but we have seen you all around. You opened for Keith Urban. You on TikTok, you've got this huge following with your Finish the Lick line. I want to start with Keith Urban. How did that happen? How did you get connected with him? And what was your reaction when you first heard that he wanted you to open?
Yeah, so I actually was in his band. I didn't open for him. I've been touring in his band for the...
Hollywood once crowned Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban the definition of perfection. Two polished souls who smiled through flashes and interviews as if love were a carefully scripted movie. But perfection doesn't last long in a city that feeds on illusion. The calm started cracking when whispers about a bold new country singer named Maggie Baugh began slipping through digital backdoors, spreading faster than a PR team could delete comments. It began with a single cryptic post, 6 haunting words that set off an avalanche. Some scars don't fade, even with fame. There were no tags, no mentions, just enough scent for the internet detectives to pounce. Within hours, fans noticed Maggie had liked an old photo of Keith, one buried deep from 2018, the kind where he thanked a special friend for inspiring his music. Suddenly, social media turned into a digital courtroom. Comment sections burned with theories, screenshots, and guesses. "She's talking about Keith," one wrote. "Nicole better check her DMs," another added. It felt like watching a house of glass fracture in slow motion. What came next wasn't rumor, it was revelation. Maggie Baugh, fiery and fearless, dropped what she called receipts. Screenshots half-cropped, half-lit, but damning enough to ignite chaos. Messages allegedly from Keith reading "Wish You Were Here Tonight" and another, "You make music feel real again." Were they fake? Maybe, but timing makes truth believable. And Keith Urban's reaction, or lack of one, only made it worse. When pressed by cameras, he smiled thinly and said, "People do anything for attention." He never said she's lying. In Hollywood, silence can sound like confession. For Nicole, the pain became performance. First, she unfollowed her husband. Then came a caption that sliced like glass. "Loyalty is more than a word." That was it. 6 words that shook a marriage. The media turned it into poetry. The blogs turned it into evidence, and fans turned it into memes. Insiders whispered that Nicole had left their home for a few days, seeking space in Sydney. She was seen walking alone, journal in hand, wedding ring absent. The tabloids didn't hesitate. Reflection mode became the headline. But this wasn't self-care. It was survival. Behind the scenes, both camps scrambled. Keith's team drafted a statement about baseless rumors, while Nicole's side wanted silence. Damage control turned into a tug of war. Once screenshots hit the internet, the story wasn't theirs anymore. It belonged to the world. A world addicted to betrayal, proof, and heartbreak. Then Maggie vanished. One morning, her entire page wiped clean. No posts, no captions, no trail. All that remained was a story that read, "The truth always comes out." Timing is everything. 24 hours later, it was gone too. But the screenshots, of course, lived forever. The sudden disappearance only fueled more speculation. Did Keith's lawyers threaten her? Did Nicole's team bury the narrative? Or was this a marketing trick to sell Maggie's new single Fame and Fire, which coincidentally dropped days later? The lyrics cut too close to reality. He said I was his melody, but I was just another verse he'd forget. Nicole Kidman, ever the queen of subtle shade, posted a black and white selfie with the line, "Silence can be misinterpreted." To the untrained eye, it was poetic. To the gossip world, it was a shot fired. Meanwhile, Keith tried to drown himself in work. He performed in Nashville, smiling for the crowd, but his voice cracked on the final chorus. A fan caught it on camera, and the clip went viral under the hashtag #BrokenUrban. The performance that was meant to quiet the noise only turned into proof that the noise had already won. Anonymous sources soon emerged from nowhere, the kind that always know too much. One claimed that Maggie and Keith had first crossed paths at a charity concert years ago, when he offered to mentor her songwriting. What began as mentorship, insiders said, turned into something murkier. The chemistry was undeniable. She was young, passionate, and saw him as the man who could open every door. He saw her as the reminder of the fire he once had. Every duet in the studio, every late-night text about music. It all blurred into something you couldn't call professional anymore. The internet devoured the story like it had been waiting for this twist all along. Nicole's solo appearances became public evidence of heartbreak. Every photo without her ring was treated like a court document. Her calmness made people angrier. Her silence became suspicious. And then, out of nowhere, a photo appeared online. Grainy, off-center, but unforgettable. Keith Urban and Maggie Baugh, smiling in the background of a private event, his hand lightly on her back. No context, no caption. Just enough warmth in the image to turn rumor into reality. From there, everything unraveled. Maggie's name dominated headlines. Keith's tour dates started facing sponsorship reevaluation. Nicole's brand partners quietly requested clarity. The whole situation mutated from gossip to crisis management. Even country stars started tweeting vague lines about men losing good women. Hollywood's perfect marriage was now a spectacle, one trending hashtag at a time. Then came the late-night TikTok live. Maggie Baugh, tear-streaked, whispered, "Sometimes loving someone in silence hurts louder than their lies," before ending the stream mid-sentence. No names, no context. Just enough heartbreak to make it believable. That 4-minute clip spread faster than any interview could. Fans replayed it frame by frame, convincing themselves they saw pain, not strategy. Others called her an opportunist, a performer. But either way, she had the world's attention, and so did the crumbling empire of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban. The fallout grew heavier by the day. Tabloids called it the Urban unraveling. Commentators debated whether it was betrayal or PR genius. People weren't just gossiping anymore. They were analyzing like detectives. Every pause in a sentence, every public smile became data. Was it real love or calculated illusion? One journalist wrote. In the court of social media, perception was the only evidence that mattered. Weeks later, the silence cracked again. A single image appeared on Keith's page. Him and Nicole standing on a balcony, sunset behind them, smiles perfectly framed. The caption read, "Some storms pass. Some teach you how to dance in the rain." Instantly, chaos reignited. Were they reconciling? Was this old? Was it staged? The internet tore the picture apart pixel by pixel, studying body language, lighting, even reflections in the glass. Some fans celebrated. Others cried foul. "They're faking peace," one user wrote. "That's PR lighting if I've ever seen it," another claimed. Behind closed doors, insiders whispered about counseling sessions and contracts. Some said Nicole had demanded therapy before signing off on any public appearance together. Others insisted the photo was orchestrated to calm investors and sponsors. Because in Hollywood, love stories aren't just emotional, they're economical. Every image has a price, every silence a strategy. And yet, the emotional residue couldn't be faked forever. A paparazzi video surfaced showing Nicole leaving a charity gala alone, eyes hidden behind shades, her face unreadable. Reporters shouted, "Are you leaving him?" But she never answered. She didn't need to. That quiet walk said everything. Later that night, she posted a shadow photo captioned, "Every light reveals what darkness hides." Within minutes, fans declared it the quote of the year. Others called it the final goodbye. By now, Hollywood wasn't watching a marriage, it was watching an epic. Maggie Baugh's music soared on streaming charts. Keith Urban's tour tickets spiked. Nicole Kidman's sympathy rating climbed sky high. The line between heartbreak and marketing had blurred completely. Was it coincidence or choreography? Nobody could tell. But one truth was clear. Every player in this triangle was winning something. Still, the emotional core of it all was undeniable. A woman's quiet rage, a man's shaky smile, and a third party whose pain became poetry. The Hollywood facade had cracked open, and inside it was just people. Flawed, ambitious, desperate for attention and absolution. But in a town that sells stories for survival, maybe that's what love looks like now. Not truth, not lies. Just performance. And as the city lights dimmed over Los Angeles, the whispers continued. That Nicole Kidman was planning her own move. Something subtle yet final. Because if there's one thing more dangerous than a woman betrayed, it's a woman who learns to weaponize silence. The calm wasn't peace. It was planning. And every rumor, every song lyric, every missing ring was just a chapter in a story that was far from over. When the storm first hit, people thought it would fade in a few news cycles. But Hollywood doesn't forget blood in the water. The whispers surrounding Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban, and Maggie Baugh only grew sharper with time, twisting into something that felt less like gossip and more like obsession. The couple who once floated through premieres like royalty were now being dissected like evidence. Every movement was magnified, every smile questioned, every silence treated as confession. The more they tried to hide, the louder the city spoke. It was no longer about truth, it was about narrative control. And for once, Nicole seemed to understand that perfectly. She had stopped chasing the truth and started controlling the illusion. Behind the velvet curtains of public civility, insiders whispered that Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were locked in a quiet war, not of anger, but of image. Meetings with crisis managers turned into therapy sessions. Rehearsed apologies became bargaining chips. They were no longer lovers. They were co-authors of a story that had gone off script. Some days they'd appear together for cameras, rehearsed and careful. Other days they wouldn't even stay in the same house. Still, both knew that walking away publicly would cost millions in endorsements and reputation. Hollywood doesn't reward heartbreak. It monetizes it. And so the show had to go on. Then came the leak that reignited everything. A private voice memo surfaced online. Low quality, muffled, but the voice sounded achingly familiar. A man whispering about wanting to start over, about needing freedom. Fans didn't need confirmation. They already decided it was Keith Urban. The clip spread like wildfire. Some said it was edited, others said it was part of a larger recording that someone sold to a gossip outlet. Keith's representatives dismissed it as AI fabrication, but by the time the denial arrived, the clip had already reached millions. The damage was done. Truth no longer mattered. Belief did. Maggie Baugh, who had disappeared after deleting her posts, suddenly found herself trending again. Her followers doubled overnight. She didn't speak, didn't post, didn't clarify, and that silence became her greatest weapon. Fans projected every theory onto her absence. Some said she was under a legal gag order. Others claimed she'd been paid to disappear. A few romanticized it as heartbreak retreat, a woman healing from being erased by fame. When she finally returned weeks later, she didn't need a press conference. She let a song do the talking. The single dropped without warning, a stripped-down acoustic track titled Honesty Hurts. It was just Maggie Baugh's voice and a guitar. Raw and trembling, singing, he sang me songs he wrote for her. I was his echo, not his home. No names, no direct references, but the meaning was carved in emotion. Within hours, our Honesty Hurts flooded social media. Fans connected every lyric to Keith Urban, breaking down each verse like a coded confession. Even people who had never heard of Maggie before were suddenly quoting her. Radio stations picked it up, and entertainment hosts replayed snippets while replaying old clips of Keith performing. It was as if two worlds, music and scandal, had collided perfectly for streaming numbers. Meanwhile, Nicole Kidman stayed eerily still. She didn't react publicly, didn't post cryptic quotes or unfollow anyone again. That silence was deafening. Some called it dignity. Others called it strategy. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered she had begun consulting with attorneys, not for divorce, but for image protection. In Hollywood, reputation is intellectual property. Every headline, every narrative has value, and Nicole was ensuring that her version of events would be the one history remembered. The industry couldn't look away. Talk shows turned the scandal into think pieces about love, loyalty, and PR manipulation. One podcast even called it the most brilliant accidental marketing rollout in years, because somehow all three careers were thriving. Maggie Baugh's single charted higher than any of her previous releases. Keith Urban's concert attendance soared from curiosity alone. And Nicole Kidman had become the face of endurance, the woman who stood tall through betrayal. Each of them was benefiting from the chaos that had almost destroyed them. But there's a point where performance starts to eat the people inside it. Late one night, paparazzi caught Nicole and Keith leaving a restaurant in Los Angeles. The video had no sound, only gestures. Nicole's body stiff, Keith's hand reaching toward her, his mouth moving like he was begging. She turned away. The footage looped across social media, labeled Round 2. Yet, strangely, this time the public didn't mock them. The rawness hit different. Maybe people were tired of picking sides. Maybe they finally saw what was underneath. Exhaustion, not strategy. 2 days later, Keith Urban posted a short video on Instagram. He sat on a stool, guitar in hand, strumming a soft melody. Nicole Kidman appeared beside him halfway through the clip, not saying a word, just swaying gently with her eyes closed. The caption read, "Forgiveness is louder than rumors." That line hit the internet like poetry. Within hours, the video became one of the most shared posts of the year. Fans flooded the comments with hearts and prayers. Suddenly, everyone wanted to believe in reconciliation. People love redemption more than scandal. Still, those who watched closely noticed the tension beneath the calm. Nicole's hand barely touched Keith's knee. Her smile never reached her eyes. It looked like closure, not comfort. Yet perception was all that mattered. To the world, they were whole again. To the industry, they were safe investments again. The illusion had been restored. Behind closed doors, a different conversation was happening. A tabloid obtained an internal memo from a PR agency suggesting the entire saga had been managed narrative escalation. According to the memo, both Keith and Maggie's releases benefited from synchronized peaks in online interest. Even the infamous photo of Keith and Nicole on the Sydney balcony, the one that broke the internet, had been pre-approved for timing. The story claimed what fans suspected all along. The heartbreak might have been real at first, but the way it played out wasn't entirely organic. It was refined, repackaged, monetized. When that expose hit the newsstands, the internet split in two. Half of the fans were furious, accusing all three of playing with public emotion. The other half admired the genius of it all. "If you can't escape the gossip, control it," one tweet read. Another said, "They turned heartbreak into high art." By then, the numbers were undeniable. Streams, sales, sponsorships, and engagement metrics had skyrocketed across the board. It didn't matter what was true. The performance had paid off. Even with all the chaos, there was still one person who never lost her mystery: Maggie Baugh. She didn't attend interviews, she didn't explain herself. Instead, she released another song, softer, sadder, called "The Quiet Side." The lyric that broke everyone's heart was just one line. "He told me love was a duet, but he only sang his verse." The comment section exploded again. Some praised her bravery, others accused her of exploiting pain. Either way, she stayed on everyone's playlist. Her heartbreak became the soundtrack of the very scandal that had once silenced her. As for Nicole Kidman, her next public move was calculated perfection. She appeared on a red carpet months later, radiant, glowing, wearing a golden gown and that familiar calm smile. Reporters shouted questions about forgiveness, about trust, about marriage. She said nothing, just smiled and walked away. The next morning, every outlet ran the same headline: Nicole Kidman chooses grace over gossip. The woman who once trembled under rumor had learned to weaponize silence. Keith Urban kept performing, his set list carefully arranged to include songs about redemption, loyalty, and endurance. He never mentioned the scandal again, but sometimes when the crowd went quiet, his eyes drifted somewhere far away, maybe toward regret, maybe toward relief. To some fans, that made him human again. To others, it was proof that guilt lingers even when the cameras fade. In the end, no official closure ever came. No statement, no confession, no reunion announcement. Just three lives that continued in parallel, connected by a rumor that had become legend. Maggie Baugh sang her truth through lyrics. Keith Urban played his through melody. Nicole Kidman embodied hers through silence. Together, they created one of the most intricate scandals Hollywood had ever consumed. And maybe that was the point all along. Maybe it was never about love or betrayal, but about survival in a city that feeds on emotion. In Hollywood, heartbreak is just another performance, and the audience always wants an encore. As the cameras moved on to the next sensation, whispers about what really happened between Nicole, Keith, and Maggie lingered like smoke after a fire. Because the truth is, no one will ever know where the acting stopped and the feeling began. What we saw was the polished version: love packaged for consumption, pain edited for sympathy, forgiveness staged for virality. The real story, the one behind the hashtags and headlines, stayed locked between three people who learned that the only way to survive a scandal is to turn it into art. And somewhere in a dimly lit studio, Maggie Baugh was rumored to be writing again. One last song, whispered to be called Timing. A lyric supposedly leaked from the demo. They said the truth always comes out, but nobody warned me it comes with applause. It was the perfect ending to an imperfect tale, poetic, haunting, and painfully real. Because in this city, scandals don't die. They evolve, rebrand, and resurface with a new beat. And as long as there's an audience willing to listen, Hollywood will always find another verse to sing.